Sweet peeps, thank you so much for joining me again. We are continuing on in our series of the Hoodoo Tarot study, where we are looking particularly at the majors. And in this segment, we are going to be looking at courting, traditionally the lovers, Railroad Bill, traditionally the Chariot, and Strength, aka Strength. So if you are ready to deep dive into these here cards with me, stay tuned. Okay, now we are looking at these here lovers, the Chariot, and the Strength card. That's the traditional cards we have here with the, in this particular case, I'm working with the borderless Smith-Waite deck, US Games. And then we have the Hoodoo Tarot right here. So let's get right to it. We've got lots to cover. Love the lovers, love the courting. Okay. Courting was something very much in the fabric of my ancestral history, so I relate a lot to this imagery here found in the courting cards. In fact, for example, my parents, when I think of the Lovers card and I think of courting, I instantly think of my parents. My parents have been married for, I don't know, like 43 years. They might kill me because I'm like, I should know this. Is it 45 years? It's in the 40s. How many years they've been together. They were high school sweethearts and they were courting, and that's exactly the term in my family. That's how they used it. My dad was courting my mom, and that's how my grandmother described it to me. That's how my parents described the little phenomenon of them coming together and being together forever and ever. So, lovers. Soulmate connection. When we think of the lovers, the traditional lovers, having to make a divine choice with matters of something heavy and big like love, right? The lovers being that choice, a choice choosing between this or that, this big thing or this other big thing, following your heart or not. Soulmate connections, kindred spirits coming together, emerging of sorts. So that's what I think of here. And we have the courting. We have a couple, man and woman, coming together. Probably their moms here. This long dirt road reminds me of my family, my mom's mom, my grandmother's rural home in Mississippi. The whole image just really is nostalgic for me. I really love the Lovers card for what it brings up when I'm thinking about my ancestral history, which is why this deck means a lot to me in my ancestral work that I do. Okay, here's the guidebook. This is a very good guidebook. Before we move on, just so you know, this is a 78 card tarot deck created by Tiana Lee McQuiller, artwork by Caitlin V. Foisey. Okay, so let's move on to the lovers. Let's read this scripture because I love how she starts out with this scripture here. For there are three that testify, the spirit and the water and the blood, and these three agree. 1 John chapter 5, verse 7 and 8. Plant, squash leaves. The image, a couple is walking down the road holding hands. They are oblivious to the judgment of the two elders watching them because they're so into each other. It's clear from her facial expression that the woman's grandma isn't as enthused about the match as his appears to be. That's interesting. Let's look at those facial expressions. You know me, I love to look at facial expressions and in the cards, and I love when artists are able to really hone in on that. Okay, like that really is helpful for a tarot reader. And I do see what you mean. She is looking more pleased, if you can see closely, and she's kind of frowned up. She's like, I don't know about this union here. We'll see. Let's see what happens. There used to be a time when people understood the distinction between dating and courting. Dating was a light-hearted activity that gave a man and a woman a chance to get to know each other. Not only was it perfectly fine to call on different people, but it would also be considered unwise not to keep one's options open. I agree. However, when the two people decided they wanted to see each other exclusively, that's when the courtship stage began. The goal of courtship was not to have a companion for years, as is common nowadays. The goal was marriage. And so I think of my parents. Yeah, I think of my parents. And what's great about this book, this guidebook, is we have, you know, a Bible verse. We have a plant, herb or something that you can work with. We have a description of the image in great detail here. We have the card meaning. Like it says, when courting comes up in a reading, it is asking you to appraise the value of your attachments in terms of your individual long-term goals. Will continuing to engage with that person, those people, or that thing help advance you or your reputation among the kind of people you respect or with whom you want to do business? Now, this is courting. I'm just saying. Will their presence help or harm your efforts to attain the life you visualize? It's time to review your ethics and make an honest assessment of the road you're choosing. It's time to make a choice. And so sometimes when you think of the some of the card depictions of the lovers in other tarot decks, they will have sometimes a third party. It's time for you to make a choice with the matter of the heart between this partner or that partner. So sometimes if you start collecting decks over time, you will start to see that as another depiction of a third party in the mix. Now this could be counting as the third party here, right? This little angel of love. But, you know, there's actual, you know, I actually like and appreciate a third party in the Lover's card. And in this case, the third party, yeah, it could be spirit, but it's these two collectively, this energy of the grandma spirit, like kind of standing there and judging. Should they be together? Should they not? All right. So, and then she has journal prompts to explore. So I encourage you guys to check those out if you have the guidebook. So it says, if you receive courting in a reading, consider the following. And then you consider the following. And then she has several questions here. Okay. All right, so now we're going to move on to the Chariot. The Chariot, the traditional Chariot. And we have Railroad Bill. Okay. Wow. The Chariot, the railroad system here, the engine here. That, of course, is, you know, the will of the conductor of the train, right? Setting into motion, moving it forward with purpose. And so that's what I think of with with the Chariot. Anyway, but the engine, you know, the train, the railroad system definitely drives the Chariot home for me in terms of a good depiction for the meaning. And even this, I always love to see how the artist kind of picks up on certain details, like we have here with the sphinxes and then back here the little stripes. It's so beautiful how she did that. And I noticed that not just in this card but in other cards, and it's just the first time I'm really like mentioning it here. Railroad Bill. Let's take a look at Railroad Bill. I have it tabbed here, the Chariot, the verse, with God we shall do valiantly. It is he who will tread down our foes. Psalm chapter 108, verse 13. Plant, maca. The image, Railroad Bill is waving at the people cheering for him in the distance. Railroad Bill was born in an unknown year but passed away in 1896 and was a laborer with no clear past, as his name, place of birth, and many other details about his life remain a mystery. What do we know? What we do know, I should say, is that the authorities claimed he was a man named Morris Slater, and we know the hell he put them through. Uh-oh. It all started in 1894 while Bill was employed as a turpentine worker in Bluff Springs, Florida, when, after an altercation, he exchanged gunshots with a deputy. The cause of the row had been lost to time, but it was from that day on that he became an outlaw. Bill committed train robberies and engaged in fatal gunfights with lawmen and bounty hunters who traveled from all over the country to collect the substantial bounty on his head. Bill usually rode along the Louisville and Nashville Railroad, the L&N, in southern Alabama. Naturally, the daily reports of a Negro desperado gunning down white men sold a lot of newspapers, and it didn't take long before a folk hero akin to Robin Hood was born. Okay, so probably what was happening is he's riding through the black communities, as it's saying here. And it says, Bill used his spiritual powers as a conjure man to avoid capture by transforming himself into a fox to throw dogs off his trail. And I'm reading a book called Conjure Women. It's a fiction piece, a historical fiction piece that takes place post-Civil War, and talks about this. The main character, she's a root worker, a conjure woman who was a slave, and her mom was a slave, and she was like, she was a root worker herself. She comes from a lineage of that, and it's just beautiful. And the theme of foxes shows up in that fiction piece. I encourage you guys to check it out. I'm loving the book so far. It's one of my summer reads, and I plan on discussing it further in my Facebook group once I'm done reading it. Okay, so he became the personification of the clever trickster who appears in both indigenous American and African folklore, so much so that his legend continued to grow well into the 20th century. All right, so I'm not going to keep going there. Meaning, and I'm just going to read the first sentence of the meaning. When Railroad Bill turns up, you are being encouraged to increase your efforts to ensure victory. It's a reminder of the characteristics that are required to win: confidence, determination, discipline, persistence, and assertiveness. I love, again, how she lists some questions to ponder for journaling or just to throw cards to those questions. For example, the first one is, if you don't plan to win the game, then why are you playing? Number 2, success is the best revenge. Number 3, get rid of any people or situations that are distracting you from your mission now. I love that. So there you have it. We're going to move on finally to strength. Last but not least, let me put these over here. Got my strength card. Okay, so we have strength and strength. She did not change the names here. Tiana did not change the name for this particular strength card. And we have a wild beast here. Beautiful, striking eyes. Inner strength that she has to be able to have the outer strength to hold this wild beast. And similar kind of feel, except the artist does this more with the eyes looking straight on to us, so we can really see this, see her, inner strength shining through. Whereas with the traditional strength card, we have her, kind of bent over. Her hand is resting on the snout, or whatever you want to call the lion's snout, and underneath the mouth, the jaw, just kind of gently pressing, and again, yes, you could physically do this, but to be able to do this, I mean, this is a woman who may not have, I'm not trying to say women don't have physical strength, but this isn't a man. This was a deliberate addition to this photo, that it was a woman and not a man, to be able to tame this lion. And what it would take is deep inner strength. Knowing, inner strength and knowing. Same thing here that I'm picking up here with the Hoodoo Tarot. Okay. So I'm going to stick that here. We're going to take a little look-see at the guidebook. Okay, let's read this Bible verse. May you be strengthened with all power according to his glorious might, for all endurance and patience with joy. Colossians chapter 1, verse 11. Plant chamomile. The image, a woman poses with a powerful puma. She trusts it, and it trusts her. Okay. So it says the puma, known also as the cougar, the mountain lion, or the panther, is the second largest cat in North America. Okay. And then the meaning, it says, when strength comes up in a reading, you're being asked to consider how you will access the inner strength needed to overcome any obstacle in your path. This is not a card of brute force, but one of subtlety, patience, and endurance. It is a reminder that you have what it takes to triumph over whatever may be troubling you if you don't push too hard or act a fool. If someone has really pissed you off, it's critical that you heed this advice, or you could make a mistake that could make things worse. It might get you or someone else hurt or locked up. Just chill and things will work out fine. And if you receive strength in a reading, consider the following. Are you strong enough to be compassionate? Use the power of persuasion to get the results you're seeking. Number 3, he is an influencer. Pay attention. Number 4, brute force or bluntness will backfire now. Be careful. So these are just some things to consider when you're, and she has others listed, but I'm not going to go through all of those. And so, yeah, we have the Hoodoo Tarot that we're talking about. Be sure to check out the other Hoodoo Tarot study videos I have. I have also the unboxing of this deck, some tarot combos that I did back in the day with this deck. So I encourage you to check these videos out on my channel. If you are feeling up to the challenge, join the Tarot Study Group over on Facebook. My Facebook group is Abundant Life Tarot Group, and this is where we deep dive into a deck for a good period of time. This has been the length of the summer that we've been working with the Hoodoo Tarot exclusively for our study, okay? At some point in the fall, we will be voting for another deck to deep dive into, but I am just thoroughly enjoying the Hoodoo Tarot, I have to say, because I love working with a deck that speaks so much to my personal history. And I know many others can relate. Even if you're not from this region, or your family doesn't practice hoodoo, or that you're not a person of color, does not mean that you cannot use this deck. Okay, so I just want to say that here and say that now. Alright guys, that's it. That's all for now. We will be moving on to the next cards. And thank you so much for joining. Please don't forget to share the video. Please also don't forget to like on your way out. And please subscribe if you are new to the channel. I have more content coming. And I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to watch my videos and comment and all that good stuff. Take good care.